Okay, Be'ezat Hashem, Na'aseh v'natzliach. I want to welcome you to the Lighthouse project as we continue our learning of Megilat Esther, as we continue revealing the characters of the story. We did the king, we did the queen, we did the villain. Tonight we're going to do the hero. Before we get started, I'd like to give an honorable mention to our sponsors. This learning is dedicated to the memory of Devor Fega Bat Shmuel Zichronah Levacha, and for the Fuah Shalom Menachem Mendel Batzar Batya, and for our Issachar and Zvulun sponsorship, H&M Builders, doing this in memory of their grandfather, in honor of the Dornbush family. Be'ezat Hashem, that the Dornbush family had continued success in all they do. Bracha, Vatzlacha, health, wealth, success, briut, nachat ruach, shlom bayit amiti, and siyata d'shmaya in all that they do. For the honor of having them sponsor this class close to 2 years right now. Really, I do appreciate it. Also, I want to give an honorable mention to a new soul that's been lit. A good friend of ours, Mr. Abe Lanking, that actually has been coming to the classes, and he's not going to be able to be here tonight, but this class should be for his Hatzlacha, for Avraham ben Batya, Natanya ben Chaya, Eliana Rechel bat Natanya, and Sophia bat Natanya. And Be'ezat Hashem, just like this class is called Get to Know the Hero, Be'ezat Hashem, that Hashem give us the ability to be heroes in our own lives, to our family, to our children, to our communities, and the Be'ezat Hashem will be able to make the impossible possible in all different aspects of our lives. Let's get started. So in the past few lessons, we got to know the king, the evil Achashverosh, the drunkard that killed his queen, and then started a massive search of a new beauty queen, a beauty pageant spanning over 127 countries. An evil king that agreed to the annihilation of the Jewish people, being swayed in his personal and political life by a wicked, self-centered advisor, whose advice was never for the king's benefit or for his kingdom, rather just to serve his personal agendas. A lot of the points that we're going to be making today, we already discussed in previous classes, so we should know what we're talking about. If not, we'll try to clarify as we go along. We also, in the past few lessons, discussed the queen, the dead queen Vashti, and how and why she got there to deserve that predicament, and also the search for the replacement of a new queen. And the new queen was later to be the righteous Queen Esther, the orphan child raised by the Gadol Hador, the chief rabbi of that time. She was a Jewish beauty queen in a castle of an anti-Semitic king. She risked her life for the sake of the Jews, but she never sacrificed her spirituality. She never sacrificed her holiness in the process. Then we went and we learned about the villain, the one and only Aman, public enemy number one, the one that was the hater of the Jews at that time, the Amalekite anti-Semite. Haman had a thirst for the annihilation of the Jews, especially for one in particular, the hero of the story, because the hero and the villain had a very interesting relationship, and no story is complete without a hero. The protagonist that has the ability, that has the character, that has the knowledge, that has the desire, that has the responsibility to save and rescue, to change and protect the fate of all that are in danger. The one who can take the entire responsibility on his shoulders alone. The one that can take the heavy load. The one that can make the impossible possible. The one who goes against all odds and wins. The one who's able to go against all odds and make it. The one and only Mordechai HaYehudi, the hero of our story. All this with the backstory of a spiritually disconnected nation who partook in the king's feast against the recommendations of Mordechai, which angered God even more, and the decree of the annihilation of all the Jewish people in one day was decreed. So with an evil king, an anti-Semitic personal advisor, an angered God, and a disconnected nation, who can get us out of this predicament? Who can save the day? Who can save the Jewish nation? Who? Well, the time has come to meet the hero.
Hero?
The hero.
I thought it was a heroine.
And that was last week.
Oh, okay.
The time has come to get to know the hero. The first place we see Mordechai mentioned in the Megillah, it's Pasuk Hey, which says, Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira, u'shmo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shim'i ben Kish ish Yemini. There was a Jewish man that lived in the capital of Shushan. His name was Mordechai, the son of Yair, the son of Shim'i, the son of Kish, ish Yemini, from the tribe of Benjamin. Asher higla miYerushalayim, they got exiled from Jerusalem. Im hagola asher higlata im Yochaniah melech Yehuda, asher higla Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel. He came during the time of the exile that happened during the king Yochaniah, the king of Yehuda, which exiled Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon at that time. Vehi oman et Hadassah, and he's the one that raised the girl by the name of Hadassah. Who's Hadassah? He Esther, Badodo. Her name is Esther, his cousin. En la ava. She has no father and she has no mother. V'ne'ara yafat toar, and the girl is very beautiful. V'tovat mar'em, pleasant for the eyes. U'be'mot avia ve'ima, and when her father and mother died, lakha Mordechai lo lebat. Mordechai took her in as a daughter, and he raised her. And that's the first introduction that we have, the first three Pesukim that talk about Mordechai in the Megillah. So just to get a little bit more, again, we're trying to get to know the character. We're trying to learn the Megillah through a different vantage point, through the angle of the character itself. So a lot of it is going to be just about Mordechai. We're taking it for granted that you guys know the story. So if we jump around from one part of the story to the next, is because you guys already know the story. Because this is a study of Megilat Esther through the eyes of the character. Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira. A Jewish man was living in the capital of Shushan habira. Shmo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shim'i ben Kish ish Yemini. Okay, why did they need to tell me that there was a Jewish man in Shushan, in the capital? There were a lot of Jews over there. There were a lot of Jews. He wasn't the only Yehudi. Also, actually, let's answer this question. Rabbi Shemaya Omer, he says, the reason why he was called Ish Yehudi is because he deserved that title. How do you earn the title of a Jew? Lefi shaya Yehudi tzaddik, he was a righteous Jew. Uben avot mizera mnucha, and he came from the lineage of kingship. In other words, his mother was from the tribe of Binyamin. His father was from the tribe of Yehuda. Vaya osek b'Torah kol yamav, and he would study Torah all day long, and he never ate anything that wasn't kosher. Because of that, because he was righteous, because he learned Torah, because he had pure and proper lineage, and because he kept his diet to a kosher diet, lefichach nikra ish Yehudi. That's why he was called a Jewish person. Right there and then you can see, if you want to be considered a ish Yehudi, those are the bare minimum. Have a proper lineage, learn Torah, and make sure that you eat kosher. Ushmo Mordechai. His name is Mordechai. Super interesting how he got that name. It says, why would his name be Mordechai? לפי שהייתה תפילתו נכנסת לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא כמורדכי. He says the reason why he's called Mordechai is because when he used to pray, his prayer used to go to the heavens as if it was Mordechai. What's Mordechai? A smell of Mordor. What's Mordor? It's basically the best smelling of all perfumes. M-Y-R. The best smelling incense of all. That's the ones that we also use in the Ketoret. That's how good, how pleasant that smell is. It's at the top of all perfumes. That's how his prayer was to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Wow. Like a pleasant smell of incense. And that's why he's called Mordechai. And furthermore, it says Ben Yair. What do you mean Yair? Enlighten. It says he would enlighten people in halakha. He was very wise when it came to the laws of Judaism. Ben Shimei. Why do you call him Ben Shimei? Because Sheyatzal lekalel David. He says he came from the lineage of Shimei. You know Shimei Ben Gera. He's the one that went and did that special curse, the klala nimretzet on David HaMelech. So he is Ben Shimei. There's a very, very big midrash about why they had to mention here and that from that lineage and the story behind the scenes. It's a whole other class. But that Shimei Ben Gera. He comes from that lineage as well. Ben Kish. What's Kish? Kish is like a knock. So they said, why Ben Kish? שהיה מקיש על דלתי רחמים ונפתחו לו. He would knock on the doors of mercy in the heavens and they would open. That's why that's the meaning of his names. Furthermore, why is it called, when they compared him to Mor Dror, to that incense smell, he says, he says, anytime you have a word in a person's name, it's a hint. It's a hint for something that's in the Torah. Why? Every single thing in the world is in the Torah. For example, Mordechai min Torah minayin. So Mordechai, where is he in the Torah? Remember, Esther, we said, Esther et panai. Right? Remember? Haman, we said, Hamin ha'etz achaltem. Remember, from the tree of life. Mordechai, where is he in the Torah? It says that it's written Mor Dror in the Torah when it talks about the incense. Now, if you take the word Mor and the word Dror and you turn it into Aramaic, like the way Onkelos does in the Aramaic translation, then it would be Maria Dachia. And Maria Dachia is very similar to Mordechai. So it says that's the source for Mordechai in the Torah. Furthermore, what is Makesher Mordor? So what is the connection to that? He says because it sounds like Mordechai. What does it mean? That people, that the Mordechai is that he has a nice sound. The name sounds nice. It sounds similar to the way it would sound pleasant in Aramaic. So I say, what does that mean? So that's why they called Mordechai. He says no, because when he would speak, when he would teach Torah, when he would give over halachot, it'd be like pleasant sounding music to people's ears. Furthermore, Dror means freedom. What's freedom? Mordechai is the one that had the power. Mor is that pleasant smell that he had for his character. Dror is the freedom that represents that he had the power, just like every rabbi and every leader has the power to free his nation from a certain predicament. So the rabbis are finding a lot of different reasons of why his name is that name. If you remember for Hadassah, we also had like maybe 6 or 7 different explanations of why Esther was called Hadassah. Furthermore, he says if you take the word Mordechai, he says Mor is similar to the word Mar, which is bitter. He says why would that connect to Mordechai? He says because sometimes when the Jewish leaders or the rabbis talk to the congregation, talk to the nation, talk to the people, the things that they say sometimes are like bitter. The people don't like it. It's not, I have to keep kosher, and I have to keep Shabbat, I have to do all these things. It's like hard for them. It's musar. It's hard for them to listen to. It's like as if it's a bitter thing. But they realize that later on, when they listen to them, that's their freedom. That's what frees them. It's bitter in the beginning, but later on it becomes the freedom and everything that they needed. Similarly to what we see here in the story of Mordechai, that we're going to see that Mordechai, in the beginning of the story, warned them, do not take part of that seudah. Do not go to Achashverosh's feast. They didn't listen. Later on, that's exactly what got him into trouble. The fact that they took it, that's what angered God. And later on, you see, you had to unravel all their doings in order to save them. And they told him, when he told them, don't go to the feast, you know what their answer was? No, this is not a spiritual thing. It's political. It's a new king. He invited us over just to give us honor, just to show us his new cabinet. Mordechai saying, watch out, you can't.
And it was kosher.
And it was kosher because he played around with them on how he got him with the kosher, but he was able to get him in other ways, with the wine, with the naked woman in the room, with the naked queen. Furthermore, when it says over there, Shemordechai yada et kol asher ne'asa, that Mordechai knew all that was done. He says that, what do you mean he knew? He says he was able, through Ruach HaKodesh, he was able to foresee if they're going to go to the Seudah, then in the heavens there's going to be a kitrug, there's going to be they're going to prosecute against the Jewish nation, and then there's going to be a plague, or there's going to be some sort of decree. He told them, he wanted to warn them, hey listen, I know for a fact that you guys should not take part of this. They turned him down. Come on, Rabbi, you're too strict. You have to become a little bit more modern. Get with it. Be part of the time. It's just a feast. There's another name for Mordechai. His name is Balshan. Who says, why would his name be Balshan? Because he was part of the Sanhedrin. He was part of the Great Assembly, and not the Sanhedrin, the Jewish court of 70 of the 70 elders. So he called him Balshan because he needed to be fluent in 70 languages and all the dialects of each language. And later on we'll see how it comes to play. He had another name. His name was Pitchiyah. Why they call him Pitchiyah? It says not only was he able to open up 7 languages, also he was in charge of the korbanot of the Bet HaMikdash. When Bet HaMikdash was around, he was the one that's also responsible for the korbanot that had to do with the pigeons, the ofot.
So was he a Kohen?
No, but you can help. As he said, you can help. Amar Rav Nachman, Malachi ze Mordechai. All of a sudden we see another name for Mordechai. His name is Malachi. Malachi we know is one of the prophets. Velama nikro shemo Malachi. Why was his name Malachi now? She'ah mishneh lemelech Daryavesh. He was second in command to Daryavesh. Daryavesh was another king that came through after the story of Purim. So many names just for one person. It's amazing. It's like it's as if he was like had a different character that described him with a different name. And the Gemara says something very interesting. That he had arichut yamim. He had a very long life. It says Pitchiyah. That when you see the word Pitchiyah, ze Mordechai. We're talking about Mordechai, and they said, "What's Mordechai?" He says that Mordechai, the story of Pitchiyah, is 300 years after the story of Purim. 300 years after the story of Purim is Pitchiyah. So they said that actually the total amount of years that Mordechai lived was 400 years. 400 years. First Bet HaMikdash, second Bet HaMikdash, everything in between. So, besides being able to live for over 400 years, the books describe Mordechai a little bit more in detail. He says he was extremely well-mannered. He had a very, very high level of derech eretz. He had excellent midot. He spoke 70 languages. He knew the Shema Meforash. He knew the secret name of God. He was the head of Anshe Knesset Agdolah, the men of the Great Assembly. He was the head of it. He was also head of the Sanhedrin. He was also a war general. He was one of the 48 prophets of the Jewish people. That the Jewish people abided by their words.
He was a prophet.
He was a prophet. He's also known to be the reincarnation of Moshe, the nitzotz, the spark. One of the sparks of, you have to understand, there's 2 ways. There's a Gilgul, which is like a full reincarnation. Then there's a nitzotz. A nitzotz is a small spark that came to get fixed. So a full reincarnation will be, for example, we'll take Moshe. Moshe is Moshe, Shet, and Hevel. Those are the three reincarnations of Moshe. Shet was the third son of Adam Arishon, and Hevel was part of the twins of Adam Arishon. So Moshe is the two sons of Adam and Moshe Rabbeinu. And later on in his life, we see certain places where there was a tikkun for what happened over there.
What about Noah?
Also, Noach was a nitzotz.
Oh, it was.
It was a nitzotz. Nitzotz is when a spark of a soul comes back, like Moshe has a spark that needs a fix. Doesn't need a full reincarnation. So it comes into a certain person, and that person through his actions amends or repairs a certain sin, and then that nitzotz, that spark, that little part of the soul gets fixed. Mordechai had one of those nitzotzim, one of those sparks of Moshe Rabbeinu. He was a genius in law. He was a halachic genius. In the book of Pirsumei Nisa, it talks about all his different character traits, and they talk about him. It says he was really well versed in halachot. He also, the Ben Ish Chai describes on how he looked. He says that that Mordechai was very noticeable. Even from very far you could see him, because he had a very thick black long beard and very thick peot. You could see the peot from very far away, which, by the way, those are called simanim. One of the reasons why the Jewish people have that look, why do Jewish people have peot, long peot? Why do Jewish people have a beard or wear a kippah? It's a siman, it's a simanim. In other words, if you're walking down the street, what deciphers you between you and a Gentile? You have to have a siman. So that's why if you are going to go now and see a guy with long peot, you can't mistake that what? He's a Jew, right? But a person who doesn't have long peot, right? And is not wearing a kippah, you look at him next to a Gentile, I don't know. So people that are really concerned with distinguishing themselves as a Jew, to show, hey, I am standing out of society as a Jew, then they have the simanim. And the simanim are typically the peot, the beard, the kippah. You're standing out. It's like you're showing the tzitzit. Those are simanim. That's why certain cultures hold on to them. Like the Yemenites and the Ashkenazim, they hold on to that because that's their siman. That's what shows that they are different from the Goy. So they said that the Ben Ish Chai had long peot. Not only was he a Torah giant, he was also elevated to be the top advisor of not one, but several kings and non-Jewish kings. Non-Jewish kings would ask him to come over, advise me, what should I do? What is the right thing? What is your advice? Not just Achashverosh, that later on in the end of the story we see that. Mordechai was also the one responsible for saving the Jewish people from extinction. During the story of Purim, when the looming annihilation of the Jews was right over their heads, Mordechai is the one that saved them. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here today. You know, when I finished reading this list of things, it made me think of that commercial of the most interesting man in the world, the one that drinks Dos Equis, you know? Mordechai is super interesting. He's like the most interesting man in the world. As a matter of fact, there's an interesting midrash how he raised an orphan, Esther, the queen in the story. Not only did he raise her, but there was a time that Mordechai's wife would breastfeed her, or she would nurse her. And then there was a time when she wasn't around, or there was a time when I think she passed away, and now he had other people that were taking care of her.
So he didn't have children of his own?
No, I didn't see that. Esther did get pregnant, but she had an abortion. The Perik Chaf Hey in Tehillim tells the whole story.
Who is the father?
Mordechai. She was pregnant with Mordechai's baby, but during the story of Purim, she miscarried, and later on, as we remember from last week's lesson, she did have a child, but it wasn't.
The king's
Achashverosh, but it wasn't her, it was her double. If you remember last week's story.
Oh, I'm sorry.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. I'll pass it on to you.
Okay.
So it says over there, interesting midrash, that he raised the orphan Esther, and there was a time where she was crying and she needed to be fed. Vayi oman hadasa hi Esther bat dodo. He says when he was the one that was taking or raising or nursing Hadassah. Who's Hadassah? She's Esther bat dodo. She's his cousin, the
Dodo's cousin?
aunt, the daughter of an aunt, is a cousin.
Daughter of
So they say, don't read it the bat dodo, bat dado. What's dado? Dad is a breast. The Midrash says that he was able to concentrate and produce milk and feed Esther. Mordechai. One of the most interesting men in the world.
Is this a medrash?
This is a Midrash. Very well known Midrash. I didn't have to dig far for this one. It's repeated in almost every place that I looked. Later on, when he married Esther, they were known in Persia as Ishtar and Marduk. Esther in Persia is Ishtar, and Mordechai is Marduk. So almost like Murdoch. So it was very interesting of the background to this hero. Besides him being a very interesting person, and in the story of Esther, Mordechai has a very, very interesting relationship with every single character. With the king, with the queen, and with the villain. For example, to the king, Achashverosh, Mordechai had a very special relationship. He saved his life. Mordechai saved Achashverosh's life. As the Megillah says, Bayamim ahem, u'Mordechai yoshev b'sha'ar HaMelech. It was one of those days that Mordechai was sitting in the gate of the king, and there were Biktan v'Teresh. Biktan v'Teresh were two advisors, or two, let's say, not advisors. Shnei Sarisei HaMelech, one of the secretaries, the Mishomrei Asaf, that were protecting the gates, one of the gatekeepers, two of the gatekeepers. And they were starting to talk in their own special language, in their own special dialect. You know what? Look at this king. He's got us working so hard. Endless hours, endless days. Wow, I can't even quit if I want to. Let's kill him. Yeah, good idea. Let's kill him. Mordechai is listening to this. Mordechai goes to Esther, and right away he tells her, listen, there's two people plotting right now to kill the king. Vatomar Esther lamelech b'shem Mordechai. And Esther goes to the king and says it in the name of Mordechai. Over here we learn, if you remember we said, where do we learn that when you say something you have to say it in the name of the person that said it? Because Esther, Vatomar Esther lamelech b'shem Mordechai. This is the source for it. When you say something and you bring it in the name of someone that said it, this makrifta geula. We learn it from here. This is the source for it. I always like mentioning it because it's always good to know why we do things. So Mordechai, you see that his skill of knowing 70 languages and knowing each dialect of every language helped him eavesdrop, because they felt so freely to speak about killing the king in the gate because nobody spoke that language except for Mordechai. And when he saved the king's life, it was written in a book of memoirs and forgotten. But later on, when the king was sleepless in Shushan, and he asked some of his servants to bring out the book of memoirs, remind me what has been in the past. And they read to him, and one day you were supposed to get murdered by two people that were plotting to kill you, and you got saved because there was a Jew by the name of Mordechai. And he's the one that saved your life. And he says, and what did we do with him? Nothing. And ironically, who walks in? Haman. Oh, Haman, my great advisor. Let me ask you a question. What would you do for somebody What's your suggestion that I should do? How can I honor somebody that I really are indebted to? Haman right away said, ooh, he's probably thinking of me. Oh, give him the king's clothes, gives him the king's horse. Haman went for the whole pot. Give him the crown, give him everything. He's like, oh yeah, you know what? Excellent. Go do the exact same thing with what you said right now to Mordechai. Wow. He couldn't breathe for a second. Mordechai? He says not only that, parade him in the streets and say, Kacha ya'aseh la'ish asher hamelech hafetz bikaro. This is how the king treats the person that is dear to the king. Which was a major twist of events in the story, by the way. It's a major twist because everything that Haman coveted and wanted now happened to his arch nemesis. This is the whole concept of Adar, the whole concept of Purim, of Vayafochu. How things how this month and this holiday has the ability to activate things to turn upside down in your life for the better. In a split second, things can change for the better. It's embedded in this month. We see it over here. The biggest enemy, the Hitler of that time, who was waiting to had everything plotted, turned everything upside down on him in a split second. Mordechai also had a special relationship with the queen. Besides being her adoptive father, besides being her husband, besides being her spiritual mentor, and even though he had all these different special connections to her, this is not a regular relationship. You raise somebody, that's one relationship. You marry them, that's another. Being a Gdol Ador, a spiritual leader, that's another one. These are, it's like a chala of a relationship of how you can get tied into a person. It could possibly taint your decision-making process. When things have to be done a certain way, you could say, she's that orphan child. It's my wife, Shalom Bayit. Have to make sure I have to give the right spiritual advice. But when the time came to give that woman the advice or the talk that she needed, and this basically came right after the news that Haman decreed to annihilate all the Jews. What was his reaction? What was Mordechai's reaction once he hears the news? He says Mordechai knew everything that had happened. He ripped his clothes. He wore a sack, and he put on himself ashes. And he went in the middle of the city and started to yell and scream a big loud cry, meaning a cry of angst, a cry of prayer. And he came in front of the gates of the king. And you should know that nobody comes in front of the gates of the king dressed in a sackcloth. You got to come dressed properly. He endangered his life. In order to do what? In order to talk to Esther. She was in the castle. He's not able to get to her, but he's able to get to her servant. He says, pass this message on to Esther. And this is great advice, a great slice of life where you can see the character of Mordechai. It says, I hope you're not hiding in the king's castle with all these amenities that you have over here from all the Jewish people and all what we're going through. Do not separate yourself from the whole. Because if you're going to stay quiet in this time, in the moment that we're in right now, don't worry. We're going to get saved and there's going to be a salvation for the Jewish people from somewhere else. And you and the house of your father is going to it's going to disappear. And who knows, Who knows if for this reason specifically, you are right now in the castle, part of the kingdom, or part of the kingship. In other words, he's telling her, I don't know what's going on. Maybe you're over there. Maybe you're getting comfortable in your surroundings. Maybe you forgot about your people. Maybe you haven't heard about the decree of Haman. But if you don't want to do something about it, don't worry about it. The salvation will come from somewhere. God will take care of that. But you better believe it, that there's a chance that right now, that the reason why you are right now in the castle, and the reason right now why you are his queen, is in order to be for this exact moment to save the Jewish people. If not, then you and your whole household is going to be lost. Why? Imagine the Jewish queen that didn't save the Jewish people. Wow. That's a girl he raised. That's the wife he married. That's the Gedol Hador talking to her.
She was a good one.
Yes, she was. She was. Even though that she sacrificed herself for the Jewish people, and she gave up her marriage to Mordechai, even though that they said that on that there were nights where she would go and she would be with him, and the nights when Achashverosh wanted to be, in other words, they had a relationship where she would sit, she would talk to him, she would eat with him, but when it came to being with him, she would send her double. She was never physically with him. She stayed holy, she stayed a tzaddiket, she stayed righteous. But over here, we see that Mordechai, with his relationship to Esther, he was true to himself. He was true as a spiritual leader for the Jews. No personal relationship or circumstance could taint his decision-making process or waver his resilience in getting the job done, getting the mission accomplished. Just like who? Who has the same type of attitude? Just like Moshe Rabbeinu. And to the villain, to Haman, he also had a special relationship. He was the thorn to his side. He was the source of all life's problems in Haman's world. The problem that couldn't go away. That's what Mordechai represented for Haman HaRasha. He was the main reason for his built-up anger towards the Jewish people and his nemesis. They went back to serving in Achashverosh's army together. Remember, we spoke about this in the class of Haman. And this the famous midrash that they were serving in the army. And then they got to a situation where they were in the desert together. And there was only enough water just for one person to survive. And Haman says, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Please give me water. It's better that, he says, I'll do anything. I'll be your slave. Mordechai says, there's only enough for me or for you, and I'm going to need it for myself. He says, I'll be your slave. I'll sign it. I'll put it on a document. And it says that he signed it on his shoe. Some say that he tattooed it on his leg. And they were able to survive. They were able to survive with just that little bit of water that was less. Only one person, two people were able to survive. So we see over here that Haman, who signed his life over, who signed the contract to be a slave to Mordechai, is right now rich and famous. He's rich and famous. He's not that desperado at the desert. And right now he'd rather that his master, Mordechai, be dead. He'd rather that Mordechai and all the Jewish people be dead than to fulfill the terms of the safe contract that he signed in the desert. Yet this toxic relationship of this Jew and Amalekite is the central point of how we got into this mess and how we get out of it. Mordechai's refusal to bow to Haman, when he went up in stature in the government, when he went up in stature in society, when he became one of the richest people to ever live. We said, in history, there was Korach and there was Haman. So you can imagine, this whole agreement that he had with this Jew just doesn't make sense anymore. But Mordechai, regardless of where Haman is in his personal life, never bowed down. Not to him and not to the idol necklace that was on top of him. and through some various turns and twists in Megilat Esther, we see how everything that Haman had planned for Mordechai, vayafochu, actually turned and happened to Haman himself. Mordechai, besides having different types of relationships with the king, the queen, or the villain, he also had a very interesting relationship with the Jewish people as the leader. You have to understand that this was the leader of the Jewish people at that time. This was Gdol Hador. This was the spiritual giant. This was the Ovadia Yosef. This was the Rabbi Akiva. This was the Moshe Rabbeinu of that time. And what kind of a leader was he? So the Midrash says, Doresh tov la'amo v'dover shalom lekol zar'o. All he wanted was good. All he wanted was the best for the Jewish people. And all he spoke was peace to all his offspring. In other words, all he wanted is to take care of the Jewish people, bring good upon them, and to lead them in the right direction. He was always concerned about the welfare of the Jews. The Midrash says, Mordechai Yehudi haya shakul ke Moshe bedoro. Mordechai was the equivalent of Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation. Just how we look up to Moshe Rabbeinu in the time of the Jews in the desert and Yetziat Mitzrayim, similarly is Mordechai in the story of Esther. Not more, not less. He was the Moshe Rabbeinu of that generation. As a matter of fact, before the entire story of Purim happened, before the whole story of how we got into that big mess, Mordechai knew. He knew that it was going to happen, and he warned them. Midrash Rabbah says, Mordechai haya matbukan lageula. He was proper and a good candidate for the redemption of the Jews. In other words, he was a qualified leader. And Mordechai yada, what does it mean he was qualified and he knew? Baal החלום אמר לו שהסכימו העליונים על כך אז שהשתחוו לצלם ושיננו מסעודת אחשוורוש. Mordechai had a dream, and in that dream came to him an angel called Baal HaChalom Amar Lo. Came and he told him, they had a meeting in the heavens and they came to an agreement. They came to an agreement that the Jewish people are in a big problem right now, and that there's going to be a decree for the annihilation of the Jews in one day by the hands of Haman. And the reason being that they bowed down to the idol. Remember, everybody bowed down to Haman. Haman, for the people that didn't respect him, because remember who he was, a bath attendant, a barber, for 20 years in a village. Now that he went up and up and up and up in stature, not everybody gave him respect. They're like, hey, that's the guy that used to cut my hair. That's the guy that used to pass me the towel when I come out of the banya. Right? So what did he do? He put that necklace that had the idol on it. So like that they would say, oh, there's an idol on him. I'm bowing down to the idol, not him. He was shrewd. So because they bowed down to him, they in turn bowed down to that idol. So because they bowed down to the idol, and they took part of the feast of Achashverosh, that's why he knew. And he warned. And he told them. But they didn't listen. However, even though they didn't listen, he didn't give up. And what did he do? What does a great leader do? He took his own wife and he planted her in the castle. Remember, Esther was one of the 4 most beautiful women to ever live. And she belonged to him. And as this king is looking for his new beauty queen, Mordechai took his own wife and says, go, be part of the contest, win it, in order for us to have a chance to save the Jewish people. So he planted Esther in the castle. The next step, he mourned. He ripped his clothes. He wore a sackcloth. He went in the street. He was crying. He was praying. And he knew that the time has come to activate the power of tefillah, the power of prayer, and not just regular prayer, a heartfelt prayer. There's a midrash from Yalkut Reuveni that says, "Vaitzak tzaka gedola." You just spoke so highly of Mordechai. Now you have me imagine. You have me him. You have me imagining him in the street right now, looking like that and yelling and screaming. I was like, Mordechai, what's going on? It's not a good look. It says over there, why would he do that? Why would Mordechai give a big loud cry in the middle of the streets? You know why? Because he's activating something very, very powerful. He says, אלא מרדכי הכי צווח ואמר, יצחק אבי, מה עשית לי? Remember, who's the last time that yelled to Yitzchak? Remember, there was Esav and Yaakov. What did Esav do? He let out a big cry. He took my blessing. And he yelled at his father, do you not have any more blessings? Is that the only blessing you have? Did you not have one more blessing for me? And Yitzchak did give him a blessing. We spoke about it also in the previous class. Beautiful, beautiful explanation that we learned over there. I'm realizing we learned some amazing concepts. So he says, if Esav yelled and screamed and he got his prayer answered, he got himself answered, then I too am going to activate it. Because this is the Jew versus the Amalekite. So if the Amalek is winning, then I got to reverse it. The same way that they reversed the way, I'm going to reverse it also. And that's why he went and started to yell and scream in the streets. To use the formula that Esav used to the Jewish advantage. He also says over here, he also activated the very powerful prayer of Tinokot de Bet Rabban. You have to understand that children are super powerful. Little kids are very, very powerful because their souls are not tainted like the adult souls. They have a few stages that they didn't pass yet. As you go through adulthood, whether it's teenage years, whether it's a young man, a little bit of an older man, each stage has a lot of obstacles, a lot of tests. Some you pass, some you don't. But it changes you. Changes the way you see the world. It changes the way you think. A child is still innocent. Up to a certain age, they're still innocent, especially if they're protected in that bubble of Torah learning and of Jewish education. So when a pure soul of a little kid starts to pray, that's called Havel de Tinokot de Bet Rabban, the vapor, the echo, the sound that comes out from that is one of the most pleasing things for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why, for example, on Seudah Shlishit, on Shabbat, Baruch Hashem, I do a class for little kids. Like from the age of 4, 5 to about 13. And what's the first thing that we do? We read one parak of Tehillim. We go around the room and we say, who do you want to read Tehillim for? And they say, this is for my aunt, this is for my uncle, this is for my friend, this is for Ilu Nishma, this is for Atzlacha, each one. And we also have parak of Tehillim because there's nothing more pleasant for Hashem to hear than Tinokot de Bet Rabban saying a parak of Tehillim. It's very, very powerful. Mordechai is activating that power over here as well. He takes the Tinokot of Bet Rabban and he tells them now, pray. Start to pray that we get out of the problem that we're in. Mordechai is smart. And he dressed them up also in a sackcloth, also put ashes all over them, and they were crying and yelling and praying and learning Torah. Imagine that. Imagine, this is a tough year for the Jews. Tough year for the Jews. And at the time when the decree, not just the day that it was said that Haman is going to annihilate all the Jews in one day, when it was actually decreed, it was signed, that the king approved it, that it's 100%, because once the king signs on it, there's no going back. As you know, it wasn't canceled. The annihilation, the decree to annihilate all the Jews in one day was not canceled. The king doesn't go back on his word. A king's word is a king's word. What the king did is he gave another igeret, another letter saying, hey Jews, you can defend yourself. Hey Jews, if you want, you can fight back. Or at the same time, also all the ones that were plotting held themselves back and said, hey, we really don't want to go at it, it's not such an item anymore. But the decree wasn't canceled. But at the moment when it was signed and sealed by the king, there's another interesting midrash that Haman says, like the evil villain in every movie, let me see Mordechai now. Let me see what he's doing now that I got my way decided. So he's following Mordechai. He's following him. And he sees that Mordechai is bumping into 3 kids. 3 little kids. And they're coming back from school. And Mordechai is running after them. So when Haman sees that he's running after this group of children, he runs after them also. He wants to see what's going on. Why is Mordechai so interested in these children? He wants to know, what is he going to ask them? What is so interested in these tinokot? As soon as Mordechai reached these children, he goes to them, what pesukim did you learn in school today? What did you learn in school today? So the first boy says, I learned a pasuk in Mishle. He says, Al tira mipachat pitom umishoat reshaim kitavo. Who's Chabad over here? Right? You say that at the end of every prayer. So listen to this. He tells them, don't fear from any sudden pachat pitom, from like a sudden scare. Umishoat reshaim kitavo, from a promise of annihilation of a wicked villain that's about to come. He says, that's what you learned in school? How ironic. Because just today it was decreed. He goes to the second kid. Patach hasheni va'amar. He says, you know what? I also learned a pasuk, and this one comes not from Mishle, from Yeshaya. He says, Utzu etzavet ufadabu dava velo yakum ki Immanuel. He gives the second pasuk. He tells them they can have any thoughts that they want. They could say whatever that they want, but nothing is ever going to stand up. Nothing is ever going to come into fruition. Why? Ki Immanuel, because God is with us. He goes to the third kid, and he says, and what did you learn? He says, Vad zikna anihu, vad seva ani esbol, ani asiti, v'ani esa, v'ani esbol, v'amalet. He gives him the third pasuk. He tells him what? He says, up until old age, I am him. And up until Vat Seva, when you were satiated with old age, Ani Esbol, I'm going to suffer. Ani Asiti, yes, I did. Vani Sain, I will carry my sin. Vani Esbol, and I will suffer. But what's at the end? Va'amalet, but I'm going to get away.
In the Siddur has a different translation.
What does it say?
It's like, I made you and I will protect you. Something to that effect. Something to that effect.
Could be, maybe. I'm doing the literal translation from Hebrew to English. When Mordechai heard this, he started to laugh. He had Simcha G'dayah. He says, you know what? God is talking to me. God is talking to me. He just sent me a message. Today we would say he emailed him or he texted him. Moshe, he's on his mind. What's going to be? There was a decree to enlighten all the nation. Hashem says, bump into these 3 kids. I'm going to talk to you through them. And I don't know if I could ever read those pesukim without singing them. It's like, it's him, the niggin of that is embedded in my mind.
Marty say that?
No, we do read it and sometimes after tefillah, but now with the nigun. So as a leader, he knew. From the beginning, he knew. He knew that the reason for all this trouble is because they took part in the Seudah of Achashverosh. He warned them. Told you, they didn't listen. It's a political thing, it's not a spiritual thing. However, he didn't abandon his people. He had faith, he had confidence, he had resolve, he had focus. He gave up the love of his life, Esther, one of the most beautiful women in the world. He activated the power of prayer, not just from below, but from above as well. If you remember, we had in the previous class also the midrash of when Eliyahu Navi came and he went all the way to the heavens. He went to Abraham, he went to Yitzchak, he went to Yaakov. He says, hey, your children are in peril, help them out. And they said, listen, whatever God decides, God is just, God is good. Whatever God decides, we can't interfere. And Eliyahu Navi went all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, is there anybody below? He says, yes, we have Mordechai. And he says, okay. And remember, it says over there that the decree was written, la'abedam, to annihilate them. And we said that the word la'abedam is lo bedam. That is a decree written in mud, not a decree written in blood. We learned it. So we see that Moshe activated Moshe Rabbeinu in the heavens. He activated his own prayer, the prayer of Esav, and the prayer of the Tinokot Shel Bet Rabban. He was focused. He was going to make it happen. He's the hero. He also instituted a 3-day fast for all of Am Yisrael. He knew how to bring the Jewish people back to Hashem in a way like never before. You have to understand that the Jews of the story of Megilat Esther are a different breed. It says over there, Kimu v'kibelu haYehudim alehem va'azaram v'al kol nivim alehem. They kiblu, they accepted. Kimu, they performed. V'kiblu, and they accepted the yoke of heaven, the written Torah, the oral Torah, and the rabbis. You have to understand that the last time that they had this was in Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert. Over here, when they have a death sentence looming over their head, they could have ran for the mountains. They could have converted. They could have done anything. You know what they did? They stuck together. They became more religious. They became more connected. They opened up the Torah more. They became more unified as a nation. They started to activate their love for Hashem. Could you imagine? It's like you have a gun to your head and you're like in complete awe of God. He brought them to that state. Mordechai brought them to that level. And the fact that just like the Jews accepted the Torah in the desert of Moshe Rabbeinu, when they say Naaseh v'nishma, Mordechai brought the Jewish people to the level of Kimu v'kiblu, that they performed and they accepted. And they accepted the rabbis. And this whole class has been leading to this point. Mordechai was obviously Gdol Hador. He was the giant of that generation. And he did what no one can do. But you should know that in every generation, Hashem plants Gdol Hador. In every generation we have a Moshe Rabbeinu. In every generation we have a Mordechai. In every generation we have Rav Ovadia Yosef. In every generation Hashem plants a Gdol Hador, a spiritual leader that befits that generation. A tzaddik that we can cling to for guidance, for advice, for direction in each respective generation. Hashem always plants such an individual for the Jewish nation. And from Moshe Rabbeinu to the 70 elders, to the prophets, to the Tanaim, and to all the sages throughout all the generations, and even all the way to the rabbis today, and all the way to the local rabbi in your synagogue. HaKadosh Baruch Hu always plants a spiritual leader, a spiritual director in our lives. So I ask you, are we still claiming the same claim as the Jews did in Shushan HaBirah? When the rabbis ask us to keep Shabbat, when they ask us to keep Kashrut, when they ask us to keep Tzniut, do we say, it's a cultural thing, Rabbi, it's a political thing, Rabbi, it's the norm, it's okay. It's not a spiritual matter, Rabbi, don't worry. Do we push away the rabbi because he doesn't understand the times? Because he doesn't see things your way? The rabbi is ancient. He's thinking like 2,000 years ago in the desert. Are we like the Jews in Shushan? Do we still push away Mordechai? Do we still push away the rabbi when they give us instruction that doesn't fit the day and age that we're in? As if? Or do we trust the tzaddik? Do we trust the spiritual guide? Do we trust the guide that Hashem has planted in our generation, in our lives, in our community? The tzaddik has the foresight to see what's hidden. Remember Mordechai? He knew that feast was the trouble of it all. He told them. So do the rabbis. When the rabbis warn us, don't do this and don't do that, it's not because they're outdated. They have the foresight. They can see into the future. They can see. They can see what's hidden behind the facade of the Yetzer Hara that he painted for us. The tzaddik is the one who is concerned about our neshama and our eternal life, even when we don't care about it sometimes. A tzaddik is always concerned about that spark, that godly spark that Hashem has deposited in you, even when you don't care about it. When we are concerned about societal pressures, fads, cool factors, all these pressures that are emanating from television and movies, from a fake world that's not our world, that we allowed ourselves to get programmed through screens as to who we are and who we should be, as opposed to taking the instruction of our spiritual leaders of our time. A good leader knows. A good leader knows. Because he uses the Torah lenses. Before he sees anything, before he says anything, first he takes on the Torah lenses, he puts them on, and he says, is it good for the neshama? Is it good for the Jewish people? Is it good for now, and is it good for eternity? We don't do that. They do. They're concerned for your spirituality when you're not. Thank God for Chabad. Thank God for Kiruv. Thank God for Baalei Teshuvah. Thank God for Gedaliah. Thank God for Michael ben Melech. Thank God for the people that are already sparked and that are helping other Jews get sparked. Or as the kids call it nowadays, to get lit. Thank God for those people that care enough that another Jew should get to know Hashem, that should develop a relationship with God. Thank God for those people. And thank God for any Jew that puts himself out there trying to get another Jew to see the world through God's eyes, as opposed to falling into the trappings of this world. If you don't have the right glasses on, you can easily be fooled. Check the statistics. This week, and with this I'll conclude, we read Parshat Shekalim. It talks about the census that is taken in the desert. and about the Jews being counted through the method of half a coin. It's called machatzit shekel. The rabbis tell us that there's an important lesson from this machatzit shekel. Many interpretations have been given about machatzit shekel. One that pertains and is very nogea to this class is the word machatzit, which means half. If you take the word machatzit, if you take the outer letters, mem and taf, they spell out the word met, dead. If you take the inner letters, it's chet and yud, which spells out chai, alive. You know what's the letter that's in the middle? Tzaddik. They say, when you are close to the tzaddik, you're chai, you're alive. When you're far away from the tzaddik, you are met, you are dead. This week's parasha with Bat Machatzit Shekel is definitely connected to Megilat Esther. Because when you stay close to the tzaddik, when they stayed close to Mordechai, they stayed alive. Had they not, they would have been dead. We would have all been dead. We wouldn't be here. When you cling on to the rabbis, they will lead you to life. Eternal life. Get to know the hero. You know who their hero is? It's the chief rabbi. It's the tzaddik rabbi. The one that spends all day long shtagging away and then coming to teach you. You know who the hero is? The local rabbi. The selfless Jew that sacrifices all in every aspect of his life in order to save, to build, to advance the Jewish community. That's the hero. The selfless heroes of this world, the unsung heroes, the hidden Mordechais of this world. Those are the heroes, not the zeros we emulate today. The Hollywood actors, the rock stars, these social media influencers and micro-influencers, all the main characters of Hollywood TV and the internet. That's all they are. They're just the main characters on a screen that don't relate to the essence of a Jew, of who we are. The time has come to bring back the honor back to Hashem. Bring the honor back to the rabbis. The story of Purim is that the Jewish people accepted the Torah, the yoke of heaven, the Torah shebichtav, the Torah shebe'al peh, and the rabbis. Because those are the hero. Mordechai was the rabbi who was the hero. And those are the heroes of our lives. And we should take these rabbis and parade them down the street, just like Mordechai was paraded down the street. And we should say, like the heroes that they are, Kacha ya'aseh la'ish asher hamelech hafetz bikaro. Who's the melech? God is the melech. That we should emulate. This is what we should do to a guy that worships Hashem. We should ride those rabbis on a horse. You're our hero. Be'ezat Hashem, we merit to get connected to the right tzaddik in our life and have kosher rabbis lead the way and give us guidance that we seek. And as the Megillah stated, Ki gadol Mordechai bevet hamelech, that Mordechai became very big in the house of the king. V'shamo lech b'chol medinot, and his name and his stature is known in all the nations. Ki ha'ish Mordechai, because the man Mordechai holech v'gadol, he becomes bigger and bigger. The honor came back to the Jew. The honor came back to the rabbis. And we know that the story of Purim is ironic because in Chanukah we had the Mityavnim, the ones that became like the Yevanim, like the Greeks. In the story of Purim we have Mityahadim, Gentiles that wanted to emulate Jews, because Moshe Mordechai holech v'godel. Be'ezat Hashem, that we activate this, that the Jewish people get connected to their leaders, get connected to the hero, and that Be'ezat Hashem we're able to elevate ourselves and all the people around us, that we become the light to the nations, and they emulate us and we don't emulate them. And Be'ezat Hashem, that all the rabbis will grow and be known all over the world for the light that they spread, for the Torah that they teach, and for the neshamot that they save. Shitu lebechem lechela, פסגו אמנותיה למטה ספר דו אחר שהשם מברך אתכם ושמח אתכם.
Amen.